The mafia is an Italian word that means bold or brave. But of course, over time it has come to mean something much different. There are numerous criminal organizations around the world that fit the description of what we think of as the mafia today, and his wealth definitely put him on this list. Escobar was born in Colombia, but quickly rose to power in the world of narcotics. By the late 80s, he was the largest drug trafficker in the world, and with that came a lot of cash. He became boss after his father was indicted for tax evasion and sent to prison. He was the boss of the Genovese crime family and played a big role in the formation of the Commission, which regulated organized crime in the U.S. He was in charge of the Corleonesi clan and was responsible for many violent crimes, including ordering the murders of several Italian politicians. He was the boss of the Bonanno crime family and was known for his violent temper. Under his leadership, the family became involved in a number of violent feuds with other crime families. He was also the first boss of the family to become a millionaire. He is the son of a mafia boss and took over the family business after his father was arrested. These men earned their fortunes through illegal activities such as gambling, extortion, and drug trafficking. Some of them were also responsible for the murder of several rivals and law enforcement officials. Let us know in the comments below if you think someone else should have been on this list. And as always, thanks for watching. Under his leadership, the family became involved in a number of lucrative rackets, including drug trafficking, extortion, and illegal waste disposal. He was also responsible for the murder of several rivals and law enforcement officials. He was arrested in 2002 for mafia association and is currently serving a life sentence in prison. Despite being in prison, he is still considered to be one of the most powerful mafia bosses ever, and his net worth is estimated to be over $4.3 billion, or over 4 billion euros. He earned his fortune through illegal activities such as gambling, extortion, and drug trafficking. He was arrested multiple times for various crimes, but always seemed to escape justice. In 1957, he was convicted of narcotics conspiracy and sentenced to 15 years in prison. However, he was released early in 1966 after serving just 9 years. He was arrested again in 1969 for extortion and sentenced to 6 years in prison. But once again, he was released early. In 1979, he was arrested for racketeering and gambling charges and sentenced to 10 years in prison. But this time, he wasn't so lucky. He died in prison from a heart attack. He also played a big role in the Mafia-esque drug trafficking activities and was even said to be involved in the killing of Giovanni Falcone, who was an anti-mafia judge. Tito Riina was the boss of the Genovese crime family and was considered to be one of the most powerful mafia bosses of all time. He made his fortune as a member of the Colombo crime family, became a capo regime, or captain of the family's narcotics crew, and was responsible for importing large amounts of narcotics from Colombia. He was also involved in a number of other illegal activities, including gambling, extortion, and fraud. Was arrested in 1985 for racketeering and sentenced to 10 years in prison. However, he was released early in 1994, since being released from prison. Franzese has written several books about his life in the mafia. He has also appeared in several documentaries and TV shows. He currently lives in New York City and is said to be worth over $1.5 billion or over 1.7 billion euros. He took over the family in 1957 after the arrest of its previous boss. Under his leadership, the family became involved in a number of lucrative rackets, including narcotics trafficking and union corruption. He was also responsible for the murder of several rivals and law enforcement officials. He was arrested multiple times for various crimes, but always seemed to escape justice. In 1964, he was convicted of narcotics conspiracy and sentenced to 15 years in prison. However, he was released early in 1972. He was arrested again in 1977 for racketeering and gambling charges and sentenced to 10 years in prison. But once again, he was released early. Riina died in 1980 of a heart attack. At the time of his death, he was considered to be worth over $1 billion, or over $3 billion euros. Because of his involvement in so many violent crimes, Provenzano was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. But even from prison, he continued to run his criminal organization. He was able to do this thanks to the help of his wife and his mistress. They were both arrested for trying to smuggle cell phones into his prison. But even with them locked up, he still managed to continue his reign of terror. Eventually, the Italian government offered him a deal. If he gave up his fortune, they would reduce his sentence. He agreed and was released in 2013. However, he was rearrested just a few months later for mafia association. To this day, it's estimated that he has a net worth of $2.6 billion or 2.4 billion euros. He also had a big part in forming the Italian-American Mafia, which helped solidify the 5 families that still exist today. But even though he isn't considered to be one of the richest mafia bosses ever, he is considered by many to be the most powerful. He was arrested multiple times for various crimes and was sentenced to 50 to 100 years in prison in 1936. However, in 1946 he was released and went to live in Italy under the Witness Protection Program. He lived there until 1962 when he was returned to the U.S. to stand trial for murder. He was found guilty and sentenced to 15 years in prison, where he died just 3 years later. Soon after, he relocated to Cuba and gained control of gambling and prostitution rings there. After Castro came to power in 1959, Trafficante had to leave Cuba and move back to the U.S. He wasted no time and quickly started planning his return to Cuba once the embargo was lifted. He wanted to reclaim his old businesses. Fortunately, he never saw it happen because he was diagnosed with cancer and died just months later. Even though he wasn't in charge for very long, he had a big impact on the mafia world. And during his short time as boss, he amassed a fortune of about $1.5 billion, or 1.7 billion euros. At his peak, his net worth was estimated to be around $3 billion. That's almost 4 billion euros. So while he isn't technically an Italian mafia boss, he definitely deserves a spot on this list. But for this list, we'll be looking at the top 10 richest mafia bosses in history from Italy. He got his start working for the wine and shipping industries, but quickly moved into more nefarious activities. He was responsible for importing large amounts of narcotics into the U.S. from South America. In fact, he was known as the Swine of the Sea. He also served as a middleman between the American Mafia and the Sicilian Mafia. Even though he wasn't involved in many violent activities himself, he still earned the nickname the Swine because he was greedy and selfish. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison in 1979, was released early in 1986. Just 2 years later, he was shot and killed outside his home. Here are the top 10 richest mafia bosses in history. Number 10, Giuseppe Barbera. Starting off our list is Giuseppe Barbera, who was known as the Swine. This name came from his love of pork, but also because he loved to get money and then squander it. He would spend money without any thought to how it could be made back, just like a pig rolling around in the mud. It didn't help that he had a low IQ, which led him to make bad decisions. During the First World War, he enlisted in the Italian army and actually received military training. This helped him later when he started his own gang. But his low intelligence also meant that he never should have been in charge of anything. Barbera became boss after his father died, and the family was threatened by another gang. So he took out the threat. But soon after that, the police arrested him for a crime he didn't commit, so he escaped to Argentina. When he returned to Italy after 5 years, he took over his family's business and soon expanded it into a massive organization. His secret was hiring people from all walks of life, even former soldiers and policemen, which gave his gang an edge. But with such a huge operation, rival gangs started to take notice and attack his business, so he had them killed. This led to a gang war that left dozens dead and eventually led to his arrest. While in prison, he ordered the assassination of one of his underbosses, which landed him 26 years in prison. He was only sentenced to 7 years, though. Upon his release, he went back to Argentina. But due to pressure from the United States government, Argentina extradited him where he spent the rest of his life in prison. No, 9, Pablo Escobar. Pablo Escobar may not have been an Italian mafia boss, but he sure acted like one. Number 8, Michel Greco. Michel Greco was the head of the Greco crime family and was one of the founders of Cosa Nostra, which is the Sicilian Mafia. Number 7, Santo Trafficante Jr. Santo Trafficante Jr. was the boss of the Florida-based Trafficante crime family. Number 6, Lucky Luciano. Lucky Luciano is considered by many to be the most influential mafia boss of all time. No. 5, Bernardo Provenzano. Bernardo Provenzano was the boss of the Sicilian Mafia and was considered to be one of the most dangerous mafia bosses of all time. Number 4, Matty Madonna. Matty Madonna is a name synonymous with the mafia. No. 3. Tito Rina. No. 2. Michael Franzese. Michael Franzese is one of the richest mafia bosses ever. No. 1. Matteo Messina Denaro. Matteo Messina Denaro is the richest mafia boss in history. That wraps up our list of the top 10 richest mafia bosses in history.